Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Allison. Welcome to Unleash Your Story, Savvy's new broadcast here. I'm so grateful to have you here joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, you have such an inspirational story that I knew we had to have you here to join us and share with our audience because people sit on the sidelines, they see things they're not happy with, but they often will be like, oh man, I wish there was a solution for this. But you saw a very necessary solution for people dealing with breast cancer and said, I know I'm going to just create it. And that's with your company, Brobe International. It's such an inspirational story. But share a little bit about the impetus and what caused you to even create it.
Well, how much time do we have? There's so much a bigger back being this project. I did find a need for it, and the original idea was just a bra inside of a robe. About 17 years ago, I was a new mom and a new wife. And we lived in this little apartment in Fort Worth, Texas. And my daughter was just a baby. And my husband, my first husband, Rick, shortly after we got married, was diagnosed with kidney failure. And so we basically, like, my life just completely turned upside down. And I was working one job and then two jobs and then three jobs. And he was on dialysis 3 days a week. And we had one car and we were completely broke. And every other day, it was just a sprint. I mean, he would have to be at dialysis at 5:30 in the morning. And so I would take him to dialysis with the baby and then come home and sprint to get in the shower and then go to my first job. And then at lunch, I would go pick him up and bring him home and put him to bed. And then I'd go to my second job, which is at the daycare center that she was at. And then I would sprint home and then I would go wait tables and bartend at night. And it was I say it was a sprint. Wow. During this time was whenever I had the idea to build a bra inside of a robe, which the whole reason was, I'm in Texas. It's hot in Texas. It's humid in Texas. I was nursing a baby, and I was sweating in places that I just really didn't want to sweat. Yeah. And so I remember having this fleeting thought one morning, getting out of the shower while I would be putting my makeup on and doing my hair. I've always got ready in my robe, and just had this fleeting thought of, why can't I just have a bra inside of a robe? That way I wouldn't have to put my nice, pretty bras on and get them all dirty and sweaty. And I thought, well, this is just an ingenious idea. Obviously, somebody has already come up with it. I'm going to go buy one. And I spent 5 years searching for this very simple garment. And I would go to, lingerie stores or department stores and I'd say, hey, do you have a robe with a support system? Do you have pajamas with a support system? Do you have something other than the tank top that has the shelf bra that didn't hold me up anyways? And, the salespeople, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I heard, no, but that's such a great idea. Or no, but you're like the 1,000th person that's asked for something like this. Wow. And I can remember leaving the department store thinking, why is nobody doing this? Like, this is so crazy to me. So during this time of searching for this garment, I ended up getting a job at Nordstrom's in the cosmetic department. And across from the cosmetic department was the hosiery department. And this was in, I don't know, it was 2004 maybe. And it was right whenever Sarah Blakely got picked up by Oprah. And I, on slow days, I would watch these documentaries that the hosiery department would have on their TV screen. And she would talk about, the 3 things that if you were to start a business or invent something that you should do. And one of them was, if you would wear it, somebody else would too. And then If you name it, name it something funny, because even if people don't like it, they'll remember it. And then keep it to yourself until you're ready to go to market. And I remember watching that video thinking, I should totally invent something, not even realizing that I actually in my mind had already invented something. And I just remember thinking I should totally invent something that would make my life so much easier, which is funny because anybody who started a business knows that that's absolutely not true. So fast forward years later, my first husband ended up passing away in 2009. And I was 29. I was a single mom. My daughter was 5. And I got laid off of my job at the time. I was not working at Nordstrom's anymore. I had just down to one job, thank God. And I was driving down the road and just trying to really, at that moment when I got laid off and I finally just had some time to look back and go, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I mean, life is really short. I just saw it for the past 5 years firsthand. And what do I want to do? Who do I want to work for? What matters? And, I kept having this Bra+Robe idea. I know that sounds crazy, but I kept having this Bra+Robe idea, like honestly in my head all the time. And I was driving down the road and I pulled over to a Target and I grabbed a robe, a super cheap robe. And I grabbed all these bras that fastened in the front and I took it home and borrowed a needle and thread from my neighbor. And I sewed the inside shoulder of the robe to the strap of the bra, and sewed the back of the bra to the back of the robe, and I put it on and I fastened it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like why have I waited so long to create this? Yeah. And so I just had it. I had no intention of doing anything with it, and it wasn't until a couple years later that I was having lunch with my friend Wendy, and for some reason, and she was more of an acquaintance, client, friend at the time. So I was telling her about my Bra+Robe combination, and she said, man, if you ever do anything, you should do something for women with breast cancer. And I was like, I don't know anybody with breast cancer. And she said, well, I happen to had been diagnosed with stage 3. And I went through 18 months of chemo, followed by a double mastectomy. And at that point, she had 3 surgeries on top of that double mastectomy. Now, as of today, she's had 11 surgeries in basically 9 years. And I mean, she's doing fine. She's doing great. But she just was telling me about the struggles of what comes along with having a mastectomy. Yeah. And so much so that she was talking about the drains, and she was talking about how she would have to, tape the drains to her shirt, and if you don't, or to her skin. And if you don't know what I'm talking about whenever I say drains, I will happily explain what they are. But and then she would have to pin them to the inside of her shirt, which would cause limited mobility. And so I just thought, well, this is great. Why is there nothing out there for women who are undergoing this surgery? And she actually brought me what they gave her in the hospital. And the best way I can describe it, which is the only way I really describe it, is if you think of something out of like 8th grade home ec. It was falling apart. Now, granted, these are volunteers that are making these, but it was not something that I would want to put on that I would give to my mom or my sister or my friend if they just had their breasts removed. So it was enough for me looking at these garments to go out and start doing the market research and see what was available and really what wasn't available. And that was how it started.
It's interesting. I find, and this is so true, I believe, everyone has this kind of nestling desire, gift inside of them, this talent that's screaming to get out. And when I talk to people, often it's something they're sitting on. They're like, nah, no one needs that. That's not important. And you just sit on it and sit on it. But what's awesome is it kept coming up for you and you kept going, And luckily you didn't throw it in the garbage and you did use it because it's so beneficial. And you don't know how many people I know in the hospital, period. I know. So late in life, she had a appendicitis. and drains everywhere. And, you know, as a woman, it would be nice to have a nicer robe, period, if you're in the hospital, whether you have breast cancer or not. So it's such a fabulous idea. And by the way, I live in Texas, South Texas.
Oh, you
Mad
do?
hot. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Where are you?
I'm in Spring, Texas, right?
Okay.
Like an hour or so from Houston. But
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about with it super hot and my bra's all soaking wet. It would be nice to have something in between. So
Yes.
the Brobe sounds like a perfect idea for really hot places like Florida or South Texas,
Yes.
period, whether you're in the hospital or not. So I love this because that didn't even occur to me that it could be beneficial for everyday use. Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
how you had the idea, you started to say, okay, here's what's not available, here's what is available. How did you go from idea to actually getting on the market? Because that's a big step from one to
You
the other.
know, that's so I had created this Bra+Robe combo, used it myself, started thinking, you know, talked with Wendy. By that point, I actually was remarried to my husband, Matt, who actually, ironically, right around the same time that Wendy had said something about breast cancer, so he's a paramedic. He used to work nights. And I remember right around the same time, before I'd even said anything about the breast cancer aspect of it, he came home and said, you know, if you ever do anything with that Bra+Robe, you should do something for women with breast cancer. And I was like, weird. Why would you say that? Like, that is so crazy. And he'd had a patient who had these drains. And so it's one of those things where I've actually given talks about it where, you know, you're listening to that inner voice. It's so much more than a business and an idea. And actually to me, it was, I have one chance. I was lucky enough that I met my first husband. I had this experience. It was a horrible experience, but it gave me completely different light on life, really. And so it was kind of like, what do I have to lose? You know, I mean, you kind of go through this life-altering experience and you just kind of look at things differently. And I just didn't want to spend another day, another minute sitting in traffic an hour each way, going and working for somebody or some company that I didn't believe in and who really didn't value me. And I just felt like I had more to offer. So, so at the time, it was kind of like, I'm just going to do this. And I actually had a steady job. I wasn't happy, but I had a steady income. And, you know, and I actually, you know, was very newly pregnant with my middle daughter, Manya, who is now 9. And so it was kind of like, I'm just going to dabble and see what's out there, see how to do this. I don't have a design background. So I really was learning as I went. And I mean, Google was my best friend, really, because I didn't know any designers. I didn't know what to do. And so Matt, my husband, said, find a seamstress. You know what you want in your head. You've talked to enough breast cancer patients and people who are in the field to know what's missing out there. Take the last bit of our savings, which was $1,000, and go find a seamstress and see what happens. And so I found one. It took, 5 or 6 interviews with people because they turned me down. I wasn't turning them down. They were turning me down. And so, we worked together for about 3 months. I mean, every week I would go to this lady's apartment and just be like, no, I want to change this. I want to do this. And then after 3 months, she handed me 3 prototypes. I'll never forget this. She was like, here you go. She brought them to my house. And I just remember holding him and I go, okay, now what do I do? And she goes, I don't know. Good luck. Like,
good luck. It's on you now.
And so I was completely lost. And so the only thing that I knew to do was, before I was going to spend any money on bringing this to market, I really wanted to get others' opinions and people who were in the industry, in the breast cancer community. And so I called up the only nonprofit that I knew of at the time, which was Susan G. Komen. And I called him and I said, hey, I have this product. Will you take a meeting with me and tell me if you think it's a good idea? Now, remind you, I was 3 months pregnant, so I was super hormonal, and they said yes, and so I was so nervous going, and I think I cried the entire way going, thinking, when you create something, you just automatically have negative thoughts. I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but you do. And
especially when it's a new experience and you've never done it.
I never did it. And I had so much hopes and dreams for this, but really not knowing, not ever imagining where it could be like today, which I'll get into in a little bit. But so anyways, I take them, and I met with the executive director and the head of marketing, and they brought in a woman who was 27. She had just had a single mastectomy the week before. Her aunt had breast cancer. Her mother had breast cancer. Her grandmother had died of breast cancer. This was so super raw to her. And so she tried him on. And I remember sitting there just thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to hate him. She's going to hate him. She's going to hate him. And she just turned around and was full on crying. Couldn't really kind of keep it together, and just said, I don't care what you do, but you have got to make these and have them for women who are going through this. And I mean, she was so adamant and determined that I just knew right then. I was like, okay. And I mean, I called Matt, I called my husband before I even got to the elevator and said, I hope you're ready to peanut butter and jelly it for as long as we have to, because I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be pregnant and I'm going to create a business, and we're just going to hope for the best. And I'm not going to be bringing in an income anymore. And he obviously had no idea what that really meant, because he was like, sure, babe, sure, whatever you need. And then come to, the reality sets in after a couple months, and we're not bringing in that income. And I mean, he's a paramedic, so he's able to pick up overtime, and he picked up, so much overtime. I wouldn't see him for weeks, because he was working 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks just to make up for the lack of income. I didn't bring home an income for 4 years, which I think a lot of people need to know whenever they're starting a business. And you come from money that, there is so much sacrifice, and that's one of them. And so, so that's how it started. And so then I started Googling. I found, brokers that would help me be the middleman between factories. And we tried all these different factories in the United States, and we tried them in other parts of the world. And, quality was a big deal to me. And so I did what most people do when they start a business. I went to friends and family, and I raised $25,000 thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to go so far with this. And then come to realize that didn't even cover my initial cost of inventory. And so, I mean, there has been so many hurdles along the way, but, I mean, it has worked out mostly. So that's how it started.
I just love the lessons you've given our audience here. Anyone listening in, if you've been doing this for a while as a business owner, or you're just getting started, one thing I'm picking up from your story is that it wasn't easy. And so many business owners, we hear by year 5, they're not even in business anymore. They've already given up. And it's not an easy road. And the idea, my husband was the same way. It's like, you'll be fine. Yeah, we got this. Let's go. Yeah, but all, both parties in not understanding what the full extent of that means, and how much sacrifice there is for everyone involved, the whole family, not just the person starting the business. So there's that lesson, and then sticking with it. One of my friends said, he created a wonderful business over 20 years, and people see the end result and they're like, oh, anyone could do this. They don't realize it may be a 20-year venture till you get to, super successful, but many years of not so successful. And to realize you got to have that stick to it attitude.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really is true. My husband used to tell me all the time, he's like, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And that's true. I mean, or even longer, I mean, how many musicians or actors or whoever, it really is one of this, but once I was in it, and once I, created the signature product, which is our recovery Brobe. once after a few years, realizing kind of the impact that it has on these women, and not just on their women, but their kids and their families and their husbands, it was like, well, there's no turning back now. I mean, believe me, probably once, if not twice a year, I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Yeah. I'm tired of not sleeping. I mean, it's worse than having newborn babies because it's just, there's so much that goes into it, and things that like, I just really didn't realize when starting a business. It was like, I just want to create something and help women and blah, blah, blah. You don't think about all the finances, the legal, the employees, the fire. I mean, all the things that go along literally creating a company. And you just learn along the way, and hopefully you're a good CEO and a good founder. And so I'm happy at where we are right now, but I feel like there's still so much more growth that can happen.
Yeah, I know there is. I mean, it's such a fabulous product. And what's amazing to me, and I'm so glad you didn't give it up, because I believe that's why you're on this planet. And I think each person has a gift or unique talent inside of them that is exploding to get out and do good by the world. And so many people just sit on and be like, no, I'll just take this job. I'm unhappy, but I'm content. It's enough. And, I'm so glad you didn't settle for just enough. You're doing so. Yeah. So where can people find out more about you, get their very own Brobe for someone who might need it, or maybe themselves? How can they do that? Yeah.
So they can visit us online at thebrobe.com. We have a lot of other products that are for recovery. We started initially with the breast cancer market with one product, and it has just expanded into a lot of other products that help not just the breast cancer market, but also open heart surgery, organ transplants, cosmetic surgery. And then our latest is our superhero robe. It's called the Elliott Superhero Robe, named after a little girl here in Austin who had stage 4 lung cancer and beat it when she was 3. And she was the first recipient of this product. And so I named it after her. And so you can visit thebrobe.com. We have so many people who request these as a donation, and for both the Brobe, the kids robes and the recovery robes. So we have 2 different links that people can go on. And, we had so many people that were like, I don't know anybody who has breast cancer, or, but I want to be able to make a donation towards somebody. And so we have all of that information on our website, and you can see all the different bundles and all the different products that we have.
Well, like you also mentioned when we first got started, this can be used in a wonderful place like South Texas or in Florida if you're just hot and want to get, dressed in the morning in something very comfortable. So we got other options for everyone.
It's summer. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. And so thank you. I really, really appreciate you coming to share your great gift, Allison, today on Unleash Your Story. It's a fabulous, inspirational story for everyone out there who's just sitting on that gift and talent. Go out there today and make it a reality. It'll take time, but it's well worth it. Thank you so much, Allison, for coming to Savvy Broadcast.
Thank you.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.